Let's see. Yep, I am live. Awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome to your lunch break with John. I hope you got your lunch in front of you and ready for a little discussion. So, this week we've been talking about Star Wars philosophies. We started out with the Jedi, and yesterday did the Sith. Um, Today we're going to talk about the Mandalorians. However, I'm not sure that you can talk about their philosophies without talking about their culture as well, or talk about their cultures without talking about the philosophies. I think it's very difficult to uh, separate the two. So I'm going to kind of discuss more of the culture, I think, with obviously the philosophies interwoven into them. I see we've got Ron Helton in the chat. How's it going, Ron? There we go. Let me switch to live chat there. All right. And give it a moment for some people to file in. Um, Let me know if you guys have any suggestions of topics that you want to talk about, or that you would like me to talk about for future lunch breaks with John. Let me know. It could be. I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be philosophy. It could be pretty much anything, as long as I have some sort of knowledge in it, and I do a little research, before I do these episodes. But most of this stuff I've already known. It's more like a refresher sort of deal. So as long as I have a little bit of familiarity with the subject, I'll talk about it. So yeah, just let me know. Ron Helton says, "Good, John, and you?" I'm doing fantastic today, Ron. Very fantastic. I was out shooting my bow at my new target in the backyard, and got two bullseyes in a row. So that was pretty fun. It was a good little accomplishment. Um, Definitely starting to improve, which is great. And I got my new arrows, which are awesome. They got turkey feather fletching. I'm pretty excited about them. But all right, on to the actual topic, though. We are talking about Mandalorians, like I said. Um, Obviously, Mandalorians are a Star Wars civilization, and they were mostly human, but there were other species that were involved because it's more of a culture than it is like an ethnicity or a race. And this is why I like them so much. They're basically almost libertarian in a lot of ways. Um, Ron Nelton says ready for the zombie apocalypse now. I don't know about all that, but get in there for sure. Getting there. I'm not sure I'm good enough yet, but we'll see. Um, anyway, the Mandalorian. It's more about the culture. So, like I said, they're kind of libertarian. They also have a lot of similarities with ancient Celts and ancient, or like the Viking era Nordic countries, in a lot of ways. So, one, how it's similar to the Vikings is you are a warrior first. That is you, the first and foremost. That is what you are. But you can do whatever you want during peacetime. So if you want to farm, go ahead and farm. If you want to trade, go ahead and trade. But always, you are a warrior first. And so when the time comes and you need to fight, then you have to go and fight. Um, so yeah, that's how they're pretty similar in that. Well, that and like raiding, they went out and raided and stuff because they had an honor like society, an honor code, um, and it was a lot. Another similarity is if you die in battle, that's considered to be glorious, and you gain a lot of honor through a death in battle, especially a good death in battle. Let's see. Let me pull this up real quick. Let me go through real quick. They have a couple of codes. They have a code of honor and what they call the raisonnaire, but it's basically just another code to live by. So the first one is strength is life, for the strong have the right to rule. Now, that's an interesting thing. That's a lot of cultures have that or had that in the past. A lot of real, like modern, or not modern, but a lot of real world cultures had that. What's interesting about the Mandalorians is their leader, who's called Mandalore, um, is chosen by dueling. So if you think that you are strong enough to take down the current Mandalore, then you challenge him to a duel, and you fight to the death. And if you win, you become Mandalore. And if you don't, then obviously you die. And Mandalore keeps going. Now, obviously, there's a lot of problems with that. Doesn't mean that the wisest leader is going to be chosen. It doesn't mean that. It just means that the strongest and most skilled person will be the leader, and not necessarily the wisest or smartest or charismatic person will be the leader. But it worked very well for them for a long time. The next one is honor is life, for with no honor one may as well be dead. And that's the interesting thing about warrior societies is they usually have a very honor is very important to them, and that's mostly so that you can kind of curb their need for combat, so that they're not just out killing random people, and they're not just you know uh, especially killing their own people or doing anything negative towards their own people. So honor is a very important thing in a warrior society in general. So is the next one. Loyalty is life, for without one's clan, one has no purpose. Um, that's a really interesting one as well. Obviously, I think loyalty is extremely important. It's probably one of the most important like attributes that a person can have. Now, blind loyalty is a different thing, and that's not what they're talking about here. But it's more about loyalty to one's clan, which that's a Celtic thing, clans. Um, but without them, you can't survive. I mean, we as humans are very social creatures. So left on our own, we will go insane. Just left completely isolated from other humans, we will go insane. That's just, I mean, that's why they use solitary confinement in prisons and stuff. It's a form of mental torture to isolate someone away from other humans. So with loyalty, people trust you, and you're not going to be shunned from society. And the last one, this is very Viking. Death is life. One should die as they have lived, and as Mandalorians, they live as warriors. So they should die as warriors. So that's a very interesting little part of the code there. Let's see what the chat's saying. Anyone? Edgar, J. Edgar. Do the Mandalorians go to glorious Stovokar when they die? Stovokar? Basically, some of the the older versions, like the further back history of or lore, I guess, because not really history, but lore is just made up history. But way back, yeah, they basically had a Valhalla. Later on, they don't really believe in that as much, but yeah, they did have a Valhalla though. Let's see. And then you have what they call the Raisonner, which is basically an updated version of the code. It's the six actions is what they call them, uh, and these are basically the setting the standard for what is a Mandalorian. So it basically is how you define yourself as a Mandalorian, and that's one, wearing the armor, right? And that's not just wearing the armor. So this is going to be an interesting one. It's not just like, oh, I wear the armor when I fight. It's you're typically wearing the armor all the time. Now, in the Mandalorian show, the Disney show Mandalorian, he does not take off his helmet ever, right? That's like a whole big deal. Is you can never remove your helmet, which is a tradition that goes back pretty far for the Mandalorians. But it used to be the Mandalore did not remove his helmet. Anyone who was not their leader could remove their helmet, but the thing is, once they go to war, that is when normal Mandalorians, like the rank and file, don't remove their helmet because the helmet shows that they are no longer an individual. They are a representative of Mandalorians. So it kind of it removes the individuality of that person so that they work as a team and as groups. Um, and so that's the point of Mandalore never removing his helmet, because he is the physical embodiment of Mandalorians and what it is to be Mandalorian. So by removing his helmet, he would cease to be that representative and be an individual again. So that's why he does not do that. Um, Second one, and this is a big thing with culture, speaking the language. Speaking, I forget what it's called now. I think it's just called Mando, the language. Mandoa. It's called Mandoa, the language. Which is funny enough because I was looking around doing research and stuff this morning before the stream, and apparently someone, I'm not sure who, devised an actual alphabet for Mandoa, which means that you could, in theory, learn that language a lot like people learn Klingon, or people learn Valyrian from Game of Thrones. Like, it's an actual language that you can learn. I'm not gonna get into it because one, I don't think I can be that nerdy, regardless of how nerdy I actually am, and two, I'm already learning another language that's difficult enough. But I thought that was really interesting that they actually created the entire language for Mandalorians. The third one, and here's where we start getting into like libertarianism, and a big part of Mandalorian is, or being a Mandalorian, is self governance, which is why I was saying before that they're, very similar to libertarians. They don't really have a hierarchical structure. Um, there's no like class distinction. Um, there's no ranks even in their military. It's basically you just kind of defer to like the less experienced people defer to the more experienced people, but there's no one really in charge except for Mandalore. But even then, he doesn't like set laws or anything. All he does is when it's time to go to war, he calls all the Mandalorians throughout the galaxy, and by code, they are supposed to come, and we'll get to that one in a moment. They're supposed to rally to his cause. So the next one is defending yourself and your family. Right, family was extremely important to Mandalorians. Um, it's obviously how you create more Mandalorians and maintain the culture for the next generation. They even had things like adoption was a big thing, um, because of how much they went to war, how many planets that they would raid. They inevitably left behind a lot of orphans, and so whenever an orphan would like impress them in some way, showing courage or particularly a lot of strength, or anything that shows that they could be potentially Mandalorian material. One good example was I think it was in one of the comics, but don't quote me on that because I haven't never read any Star Wars comics. But there's one kid that was in whose parents had just died, and the kid tried to stab one of the Mandalorians in the face, and of course was stopped quickly, but it showed courage and fearlessness, and so the Mandalorian that he tried to stab ended up adopting him and raising him as a Mandalorian. And that's the next one, is raise your children as Mandalorians is the next part of the code, which of course makes sense, right? You should, if you're part of a culture, you should raise your children in that culture and to be as part of that culture. Number five is contributing to the clan's welfare. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Uh, the clan's welfare is also your welfare. And then six, when called upon by Mandalore, rallying to his cause, and that was what I was mentioning earlier. That's what I was mentioning earlier about that. So let's see what the chat's saying. J. Edgar says, "Are you doing Trek philosophy next?" Um, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm as familiar with Trek philosophies as I am with Star Wars ones, but maybe I could do that. Uh, Jaeger says Django almost always had his helmet off. Yeah, well, by the time Django was around, it wasn't really. And again, he wasn't Mandalore, so it's not really a problem if he had his helmet off. Um, but yeah, I mean, generally they're not. When you're at war, you're supposed to have your helmet on all the time. But otherwise, it's not really a big deal if you take it off. It was really just Mandalore who kept it on. Uh, Ron Hilton says, so they believe in secession. Yeah, they're actually what the deal is with them is they're since when there's no war going on, uh, that's what's it called, uh, sanctioned by Mandalore. They would typically go out into the rest of the galaxy and become mercenaries or bounty hunters. So they had like a large diaspora around the galaxy, and then that's why they had the code. If Mandalore asks you, then you rally to his cause, regardless um, of what else you're doing. You drop what you're doing and you go to Mandalore or whatever meeting spot they designate. So I don't know about secession, but certainly self governance. Like you're not supposed to rely on other people, even your clan. Like you're not supposed to rely on them for your well-being, right? It's up to you to get your own food. It's up to you to supply yourself with whatever you need, right? Whatever weapons or ammunition, those things. Those are all on you to get. So I don't know about secession, but certainly, yeah, self-governance and self sufficiency. J. Edgar says, "Blonde in the belly of the beast." Says Klingons are space Muslims. I say they are space Vikings. Who is right? Huh. I think it could be a little of. I don't know if space Muslims is really the right. I mean, they are very religious, but they're. I think Vikings is probably. I would say closer, but even that, I don't know. They didn't really operate the same way, right? They have a strict hierarchy, uh, which I mean Vikings had, yeah, but I don't think they raided as much. Maybe they did. Maybe I'm wrong. Space Vikings, they don't force their faith on others. Yeah, that's another good point. Why they're not space Muslims, because they don't like take over a planet or something and then force their religion on everyone else. So I would say they're closer to space Vikings than they are to space Muslims for sure. But they are highly religious, which I mean I guess Vikings were too. So yeah, I think you're on. I think you're in the right there, Ed. I think they're much closer to space Vikings than they are space Muslims. And also, Seawall, welcome. Thanks for coming by. But yeah, if you guys got any more questions about Mandalorians or any more comments about the things I've said, then yeah, come now's the time. I also have to figure out what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Probably another Star Wars one. Uh, I'll find one to talk about in the meantime. And then yeah, you guys, I'm open to suggestions for what I should talk about next week. I want to keep it to a theme per week, but maybe not. We'll see how it plays out. But so while I'm waiting for your guys' comments or questions and or suggestions and or cheap shots, so tonight we've got our shooting the shit episode at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, only true time zone. So make sure you're there for that. And then tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing a movie night with you guys. We're not going to be streaming it for obvious copyright reasons. But we are going to be just hanging out with you guys and watching. I believe we're watching Christmas Vacation. So if you guys want to watch that with us, then feel free. Um, Join our Discord if you haven't already, because that's where we're going to send out the link to probably the Zoom meeting. I think we're going to use Zoom for it. So make sure you're there if you're not, and look out for that link. Seawall says, Mandos are interesting in Star Wars canon as they are fairly fragmented between the clans. Oh yeah, yeah, they'll actually have inter-clan warfare. So one clan will declare war on another clan and they'll fight. The only time that they're actually united is when Mandalore rallies them. That's the only time that they're actually united as Mandalorians. Otherwise, yeah, they'll fight against each other plenty of times. Uh, I mean, it's a good way in a warrior society to gain honor during peacetime and settle feuds between clans and keep everyone's skills sharp. I mean, not that I'm okay with let's just go murder each other, but you can't deny the pros, and only condemn the cons. Like you can't deny pros. Um, Ron Hilton says National Lampoons. Yes, Chevy Chase, the Chevy Chase one, classic Christmas movie. So if you want to join us, feel free. We'll be there at 8 p.m. tomorrow. 8 p.m. Eastern, of course. Let's see. So if that is it, then I guess I will see you guys tonight, and then of course tomorrow at 1 p.m. for your lunch break with John. Check our description down below where we got all of our links to everything, including our Discord. Like I said, that's where you're gonna find the link. So yeah, I will see you guys tonight. Oh wait. Oh no. All right, fine. I'll answer this real quick. So is the way the true way? Uh, Not necessarily. The Children of the Watch, which is the organization or clan, I guess, that Din Djarin, the name of the Mandalorian from the Mandalorian series in Disney, he belongs to the what is it? The Children of the Watch? Yeah, Children of the Watch, and they're basically like a group of religious zealots that believe in the original traditional Mandalorian way. Uh, but it's like they've bastardized the code of the Mandalorians, which is why none of them are supposed to remove their helmets, even though originally that was just Mandalore. So they kind of misinterpreted a lot of the code, a lot of the original code. But yeah, with that, I'm getting out of here. I will see you guys tonight.